presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and powered by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Welcome to the podcast, where former San Antonio police officer, author, and pastor Tim Rupp walks you through real-life scenarios involving our police officers and digs into the depths of facts and opinions on each case. This is Cop Talk, and it starts now.
Hi, and welcome to Cop Talk, the radio show and podcast of the Strong Blue Line. I'm Tim Rupp, and joining me is my friend and the operations manager of the Rev.fm.
Wow,
Mr.
Tim
Gary
Rupp.
Austin. Hey, Gary.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. After 379 episodes, I'm getting that down, huh? Whatever.
You do
I don't
well.
know how many episodes we had. We've been on for a couple years now.
Yes, we have.
Man, it's just, man, time is flying. But here we are in the middle of July, and it is hot in July.
Yes.
You know, it's been a warm July.
Really has.
And so
It's been nice.
You know what? August is coming. That means things are going to start cooling off, man.
Yeah, yep.
they cool off quick around here. So we are happy when we get the warm weather. And Gary, we're going to talk about a little technology and training today.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exciting things. But before
Good.
we do that, I want to honor the officers who were slain in the line of duty on this date in history, July 29th. And I've got July 29th, 1861. The first year of the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
100 years before I was born. And I got 3 Texas Rangers. They're all privates. Harrison and Tips Conley, Jerome Bud Lynn, and Thomas Weatherby. I'm not sure why Thomas didn't have a nickname, but he didn't. Anyways, the 3 privates were accompanying other Texas Rangers on patrol near the Little Wichita River, which is east of Wichita Falls. When a pack on a mule became undone, and the 3 Rangers stopped to fix it, as the rest of the group continued on. When the 3 Rangers were alone, they were attacked by a group of Indians and shot to death. This is the old Wild West, man.
Yep.
They got ambushed by Indians. The other Rangers returned and engaged in a lengthy battle with the Indians, and that's all that's told about it. Private Conley was 21. We don't know the other ones. Private Lynn and Private Weatherby were buried in unmarked graves near the site where they were killed. So there you go. You know, and you think these privates that they're young guys, but if there's guys that join the Texas Rangers in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and they're joining the privates. So they're not necessarily young, but the first one was definitely a young man. What do you have there, Gary?
This is Macon County Sheriff's Office out of Tennessee. End of watch on Saturday, July 29th, 2023. So Sergeant William Cherry was killed in a vehicle crash, and this happened when an oncoming vehicle crossed the center line, struck his patrol car head-on, causing him to suffer fatal injuries. The other driver suffered severe injuries. Neither Sergeant Cherry nor the other driver were wearing their seatbelts. Sergeant Cherry was 55, served with the Macon County Sheriff's Office for 5 years, and had served in law enforcement for more than 10. He had previously served with the Boiling Springs Police Department, Clay County Sheriff's Office, and Salina County Sheriff's Office. Survived by his wife, children, grandchildren, and parents.
You know, 55 years old, and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. You know, this goes to training again, I guess, but at 55, it's not training, it's a decision.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You've got to, I remember when I first got on. Now, I'm 10 years older than he is. So when I got on the police department was in 83. When I got on, most officers did not wear their seatbelts in San Antonio. They just didn't do it. Matter of fact, when we had light blue shirts at the time, and when I'd put on some of the seatbelts, because I'd always use a different car because I was a rookie, you know, one day I'd be in this district, next day I'd be in this district. I'd get the district cars, and a lot of times there was dirt on the seatbelt because they were never worn.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'd put them on, and they would leave a mark across my uniform. Like, dang, man. You know, so they were, you know, and we didn't have a policy requiring it. You know, they obviously encouraged it and stuff. But then as time went on, you know, I think, well, you got laws now that require officers to put their seatbelts on, to everybody to wear seatbelts. And it's a good law and it's a good policy. My wife still gets on me today, though, because when we hit a subdivision, we slow down. Subdivision is 20, 25 miles an hour. I take my seatbelt off. It just automatically comes off. She's still, well, you're breaking the law. It's just a habit of, before I made a call, I didn't want to get trapped in my car, if you will. And a lot of officers use that as an excuse, but you just got to train yourself to pop that thing off.
Yeah, I was just going to say is that I remember previous episode you have talked about that before, that you would take your seatbelt off, and so it just became a habit, and does for officers so that you aren't trapped. You can get out or whatever.
And one of the things that was sketchy is when I red lighted someone to pull them over. So I turn on my emergency lights. They start to pull over. When they start to pull over, I pop my seatbelt off. So when I come to it, and I checked out. So when I stop, all I got to do is put it in park and get out of my car.
Yeah.
I don't have to stop, park, take seatbelt off, check out on the radio. All that's done, because I don't know what that guy's going to do. Mm-hmm. But the bad part about that, you go to pull them over, they start to pull over, you take your seatbelt off, then they decide to run. Now you're grabbing your seatbelt and putting it back. And that's happened a couple of times, but that's just, you got to watch that. Now, I've been in some chases, Gary, where I've had to run back to my car and jumped in and took off and didn't put my seatbelt on. And we had the old bench seats on some of the mats, and you start making turns, man. You're hanging onto that steering wheel, sliding across the seat.
Oh my God!
So that seatbelt holds you in place. So there's a lot more good to it than just if you get in a crash.
Yeah.
So anyways,
that's funny.
We're talking about training here. So officers, please wear your seatbelts and watch your speeds when you're driving. But I got this article out of Law Enforcement Today, and it comes earlier this month, just a couple weeks ago. New chief's first major policy change targets taser confusion. Greensboro, North Carolina. With less than 2 months on the job, Greensboro Police Chief Cameron Avzel is how you pronounce that, I believe, is making changes to the various policies, including where officers carry their tasers. Officers with the Greensboro PD are now required to carry their tasers on the opposite side of their firearms, according to Police One. Now, this article was out of Law Enforcement Today, but it was taken from Police One. Two resources that we often use here, so yeah, that's good. They got they're referencing Police One. Avzel said that the change in the department policy is in line with best practices. It wasn't really anything earth-shattering, the chief said. I don't know. I don't want to have an issue where we accidentally pull a handgun out instead of a taser because they're on the same side. We train that way, and we just give our officers the ability to put it on either side. But it was like, well, if we train that way, then we need to go ahead and apply a policy saying it needs to be on the opposite side of where your strong side is. So what they're talking about, Gary, is here, if you're familiar with the tasers nowadays are like a gun. You know, they got a handle, and you pull them out, and they deploy the strings, and they get them. And so officers in Greensboro, where officers in most agencies, they put their taser on their what we call the weak side. So if you're right-handed, that's your strong hand, and your sidearm is on your right side. And you put your taser on your left side because it's the same motion to get it. You grab it from a holster and pull it out and deploy it. The problem is if you're thinking you want your taser, but you pull your pistol by mistake, and you shoot somebody with the bullet rather than tasering them. That's what he wants to avoid. And they said the agency has always done it this way. That's the way they train, but it wasn't policy. Now they're putting it into policy, which to me, from an administrator's point of view, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because officers, we suggest you do this, we train this way, but I don't want to do it. No, you're going to do it. What the chief is doing by enforcing this, he is protecting the agency from lawsuits. So he's protecting himself, which is understandable. He's also helping to protect the citizens, forcing the officers by policy to keep it on their weak side. So I think this is a good thing. And they reference here Kim Potter. You probably remember that in Minnesota. It says, let me see there. It says, One of the biggest controversies happened in 2021 in Minnesota when Officer Kim Potter shot and killed Dante Wright though the chief did not specifically mention this incident. Potter, who was ultimately convicted of manslaughter, said she intended to use her taser. And Gary, I remember that was all over the national news for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And she came out and she said, you can hear her saying, "Oh my God, I shot him with, I didn't mean to shoot him with my gun.
Yeah.
I meant to tase him." And so it was, but that goes back to a training.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to training, and that's why officers need to take the training seriously. And then the instructors can't just go through the motions of, okay, make sure you do it on the side. You got to go over and over and over and do the repetitions. Can an accident still happen? Unintentional? Sure, it can. But you want to lessen that as much as possible. So I think this chief is doing this. And he it says here, when it comes to any additional potential policy changes, the chief said that he will be taking some time in order to get a long-term perspective. I was looking at how we do problem solving on a month-to-month basis and setting expectations of what I expect from my command staff, is identifying patterns and identifying what to do to address those patterns. So he goes on here and he talks about bringing crime rate down. And he said, instead of just going by the numbers like, okay, we have 200 burglaries last month, let's bring that down to 180. He's saying, let's look at the patterns. Mm-hmm. Is there a pattern of crime going on here? Are these burglaries happen between midnight and 3 a.m. in the morning? Is that when 90% of them are happening? Are they happening on this part of town? Are they breaking in a certain way? You start looking at patterns and you start seeing, okay, how can we change this? Mm-hmm. Instead of just, I want this down from 200 to 180. Because officers can start like, well, I won't really carry this as a burglary. I'll carry it as a theft. So it doesn't get reported as a burglary.
Oh.
See, and then it looks like the numbers are coming down, and they're really not. So with policing, let me tell you, Gary, there's so many ways you can skew the numbers.
Yeah.
And do things, how you report things, you don't report things, you change the reports, you make this. When I was working homicide back in the 90s, San Antonio was the drive-by capital of the nation.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't unusual to have over 1,200 drive-by shootings. Now, that doesn't mean people were shot or killed. That just means they drove by and they shot up the house. Mm-hmm. The problem is that number was even low because some officers were carrying it as criminal mischief.
Huh.
They just drove by, they damaged the house, they carried a criminal mischief. Don't do that, man. You got to accurately report this. So if they're not accurately reported, the numbers are skewed.
I'll be darned.
So, yeah, it's just crazy to what's going on. So I think the chief is doing it right. I look to hear he's been a chief at several places. He started out as a Capitol police officer, and he worked in several cities, including, and what are some of the cities? Oh, he worked in Durango, Colorado, Hopewell, Virginia, and Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of common for officers. They go up to the chief level, or they get up there and they apply for a chief's job, and they're a chief here for 2, 3, 4 years, and they move on to another agency. Mm-hmm. And so he's kind of following that pattern. But I was kind of encouraged. I'm thinking if I'm working for Greensboro, do I like this chief just from what he's saying here? He seems to be saying the right things. Mm-hmm. I think he doesn't seem to be just following the mayor or whatever. He's trying to bring things. He's trying to support the officers. And he says this in the last paragraph there, Gary. He says he pointed to body cameras, internal audits, and accountability systems as key tools for maintaining the public trust, which I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He also offered a message he says he regularly shares with his officers. And this is a quote: "I love my officers and I tell them that I have their back." So that's important. Mm-hmm. Then he goes on. He says, "But my love is conditional. It is conditional upon them following policy, procedures, and doing things legally and ethically." And so I guess you can't ask for much more than that.
No.
I don't really care if my chief loves me or not. I care if my chief's got my back.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'm following policy and procedures, I'm following these things, and I'm doing things right, then I want to be backed up by my chief.
Absolutely.
And even if you're doing things, sometimes you make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not talking about intentionally doing something wrong. Then there needs to be a little grace there. Not that there needs to be punishment too, but so I think that's good. But you know, it kind of hit me as I was reading this. You know, and I'm glad our Heavenly Father's not like that.
Me too.
I'm glad He doesn't love us conditionally.
Yes.
He loves us unconditionally, but your police chief is not your father.
That's right.
Shouldn't be anyways, unless you're on Blue Bloods, and maybe it is. But,
well, and you know, it for me, from a business aspect side of things, is that applies to having a friend or doing business with a friend. Mm-hmm. That it's like there's business decisions, and then there's
personal
decisions. Yeah. That if you're like, hey, this is not working out, that is a business decision. Or, hey, you can't just do this or that, or, you know, because he or she is your friend, that you don't discipline as their boss. But it's like, no.
That, you know, and that's so critical. That's such a good point, Gary, because, you know, you hear a lot of guys they're in high school together, in college. Hey, we ought to start a business together, and they go and a lot of them are very, very successful.
Yeah,
you know, Cane's Chicken was that way.
You're right.
There's a lot of them that are very successful, but you know, if you're going to go into business with anybody, put things in paper, put it on writing.
Right.
Oh, this is my best buddy. We'll never, or even this is my brother.
Yeah,
my
exactly.
Blood brother.
Family.
Put things in writing.
Yeah.
Because when it comes back to it, just say, look, you know, policies and rules and regulations never come up until there's a problem.
Yep.
When there's a problem, there's like, well, what does the policy say?
That's right.
What are the rules and regulations? And you go back to that. So they need to be written right. They need to be written in agreement. So when that comes, we can go back and say, you know what? Let's look at the policy. That's the way we're going to do it.
Yep. And and it's, you know, I'm just thinking as you are mentioning that marriage is the same way.
Yep.
If you think you're going to go into marriage, oh, we're in love, we're never going to have any issues.
Yeah. Every
marriage, a healthy marriage, has those times of discussion or disagreement or things like that. So,
and you know, and to your point, Gary, that's why marriage is a covenant.
Yes.
You know, people,
that is right.
Well, I can just live with my boyfriend. We don't need a piece of paper.
Right.
We love. The piece of paper is a contract.
Yes.
Because you cannot operate on feelings. Feelings are fickle.
Yeah.
They're going to come to go. Sometimes you're going to like, man, I just love my wife. Other times like, man,
frustrated.
I love her. I just don't like her right now. You know,
right.
I just don't like her. But the thing is you made a commitment.
Yep. That's right.
And I promised to love you for better or for worse, richer or poor, in sickness and in health. Because you're making that commitment. You're not promising, I love her today. I'm committed to her today. You're saying, I'm committed to her 10 years from now. I'm committed to her 20 years from now. 50 years from now, when we're both old and decrepit and she's not doing well, I'm committed to her because I said I love her. And I'm not going to change that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, love, it's a decision.
That's awesome.
It's a choice we make. You know,
it is.
You know, we
well
fall into
said.
love. You fall into a hole. You don't fall into love.
No, yeah.
You make a decision. We use that all the time.
That's right.
But anyways, we got time for this other one, Gary? Real quick?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this comes out of Iowa, and it says, Iowa rejects junk science bias training for police. Oh, I found this very interesting. And this comes out of Law Enforcement Today also from last month. And out at Des Moines, Iowa. Not Des Moines. Des Moines, because it's French. That's why.
That's right.
Des Moines, Iowa, Wednesday, July 1st, a new Iowa law will go into effect, eliminating the state's requirement that law enforcement officers complete annual bias prevention training. The move reverses part of the bipartisan police reform law enacted in 2020. Now, does 2020 ring a bell?
Yeah.
That's George Floyd and all
That's
that
right.
stuff. going on, and all these legislators across the country, putting these laws into place, making officers need to be taught more. They need to be, more training, more bias training. The newly implemented change removes the statewide mandate for annual bias prevention training, while leaving in place the requirement that officers complete annual de-escalation training, according to the local news outlet. Now, so what's the difference here, Gary? The difference is this: is one training is talking about, well, don't be biased to this group of people. Be there because of their color, because of their ethnicity, because of their religious affiliation, because of their LBGQ, whatever it is. All this bias, and it's, I was listening to an interview. Morgan Freeman was on an interview with Dan. I think it was Dan Rather. I think it was Mike Wallace.
Oh,
Mike Wallace was interviewing Morgan Freeman, and they were talking about Black History Month. And Morgan Freeman said, "I don't want Black History Month." And he's like, "Well, why don't you want? We celebrate a month." He said, "Do you want White History Month?" And Mike Wallace said, "Well, I'm Jewish." He said, "Do you want Jewish History Month?" He goes, "Well, no." He goes, "I don't want Black History Month." And Mike Wallace asked him this. He goes, "How do we stop racism in America?" And Morgan Freeman said, "Stop talking about it."
Huh.
He said, "We keep talking about it and everybody brings it up and it's in the forefront." He said, "Stop talking about it." He said, "I don't want a Black History Month. We are Americans. Quit separating everybody out." And I thought, that is such wise advice.
Yeah.
Let's just stop talking about that. And I was looking at this thing, and they did a test. They got these ladies, and they said, "We're going to test and see if they discriminate you because you have a scar on your face." And so what they did, they brought these ladies in. They said, "We're going to put you in for this interview, but before you go in for the interview, we're going to put a scar on your face." So they put makeup on their face, and they put a scar on it. And the ladies looked in their mirror and they saw the scar on their face. And just before they went into the interview, they said, we're gonna touch it up a little bit and make sure it really looks real." And they took it off. And they didn't know it. So the ladies went in and they did the interview. And when they came out, they asked about the interview, and they said, "Yeah, they kept on looking at my scar." And I think, a lot of them said that they were discriminated against because of the scar on their face.
And it wasn't there.
That wasn't there.
Huh.
But they were told that they would probably be discriminated against because of the scar on their face. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I thought that was so wise. And, Morgan Freeman, I don't agree with a lot of what he does, but he's got a lot of good advice.
Yeah.
And so...
yeah, that was wise.
In getting rid of this bias training, I agree with this, Gary. It's just, you know what? We just tell people, period, in the law enforcement code of ethics, you are not to discriminate against anybody based on anything. It's the law.
Right.
Did you run the red light? Yes or no? I'm going to write you a ticket, yes or no, because you ran the red light, not because of the kind of car you drive, because of the color of your skin, because whatever it is. It's you ran the red light, you broke the law, I'm going to write the ticket, or I'm going to arrest you. It's not because of the color of skin. Now, granted, are officers influenced? Yeah, we're human.
Right.
Officer influence, that they need to do the best they can to set aside their bias. We all have bias at some point or another, and things affect that. But the more it's brought up, the more it's pushed in your face. We saw the thing happen over in British Columbia, not British Columbia, in Great Britain, not too long ago, about the guy that had called in because he was stabbed.
Oh, right.
And you got the sheik or whatever, but because that bias training.
Yeah.
That, hey, these guys are always the victims. So you go there and you're assuming they're the victims instead of the criminals.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad they got rid of this law. And
Me too.
De-escalation training, that works for anybody, Gary. If you're black, white, or purple, I don't care. I could de-escalate.
That's right.
So that is good, solid training. Officers need good, solid training, but they don't need to waste their time getting this politically correct junk. Just give officers the training they need to be fair and to enforce the law and to investigate things like they're supposed to. and not worry about that. So, Gary, we're at the end of our time already.
Goes quick.
It does. Hey, thanks for listening in. You can catch Cop Talk on all the popular podcast platforms. If you have a topic or question you want to address on Cop Talk, please send me an email. You can email suggestions, questions, comments, or complaints to coptalk@therev.fm. That's coptalk@therev.fm. Thought from the good book today. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Thanks for joining us and helping to make the thin blue line a strong blue line.
Cop Talk is presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and sponsored by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Questions and comments are always welcome by email to coptalk@therev.fm. Listen, follow, leave a review, and share this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube. And visit thestrongblueline.org to learn how you can be a supporter. Cop Talk is a Rev FM production, produced and edited by Gary Austin. Thank you for joining us on Cop Talk.